All right, all right. Sharing this. All right. All right, all right. Ooh, 3 people. 4. What's up, Isaac? Yeah. One of the people in there is me, but I'm going to get out. So, how do you feel? You're a big deal now. You've got beef with a full libertarian county page. So, how's the weather up in Sioux Falls right now? Hot haters are the worst. It's true. It's true. Cold as hell. Well, I hear hell's actually the opposite, but I get what you're saying. So I think there's 2 of us in here. Yikes. Yikes. You're supposed to get something this weekend. I don't know when. I don't actually know how to do this. I'm just kind of testing it out. I think this is. I said we're just a little testy, so you can start asking me questions if you want. Doing this from my kitchen table, which is a little bit shaky. I'm a leg bouncer, and I'm trying not to do that. So let's see. What brought you to anarchy libertarianism? That's a good question. Actually, we have a podcast on that now. We've done no promo for that. We've actually recorded 2.5 podcasts now. We've done no promo. Like, we keep being like, we've almost got 3 episodes done. We should probably start telling people, hey, we have a podcast now. So hey, we have a podcast now. It's on this page. Actually, our first episode's up. The other 2 we're still working on editing and stuff like that. But yeah, for me, I grew up in neocon. I say I wouldn't have called myself that because I just thought I was just conservative, but I was a neocon. I never met a war I wouldn't support. I was super pro George W. Bush, like really crazily pro. And, I actually didn't, this is bonus. So this is not part of the podcast. I actually forgot about it in the podcast. But ironically, Mark Levin led me to libertarianism because he wrote in Liberty and Tyranny, a Conservative Manifesto, that a type of conservatism was libertarianism, and said, like, you can go to Cato Institute or Reason Magazine. So I was like, well, that sounds interesting. So I went to Cato Institute and Reason Magazine and learned about libertarianism. Fast forward, when I went to seminary, I actually decided, it was something that I decided because I've been seeing how, like, my politics was affecting my theology, and it should have been vice versa. So I decided I was going to just completely drop out of politics. And so I did for about 3 years. And when I emerged from my cocoon, I had become a reformed theology loving nerd. And one of the things I loved about Reformed theology was it was all kind of based on those principles of the five solas of the Reformation, and the glory of God above all things. And I knew whatever politics I wanted to be involved in, I wanted it to be based on principles. And so as I started looking around, I came across this group of guys calling themselves the Reformed Libertarians. And I hung around them and their webpage, reformedlibertarian.com. Learned a ton. Learned about Rothbard, about Mises, about Hoppe, things like that. And of course, most importantly, learned about the non-aggression principle, which it was a principle underlaying everything. And what brought me to anarchy was, they say it takes you about, what do they say? It's the difference between a minarchist and an anarchist is about 9 months. For me, it was significantly shorter. I saw the logic of it, and it was kind of like, so why not just be an anarchist? And some of them were like, yeah, exactly. So I became an anarchist, anarcho-capitalist. So, good question. See my sweet Captain America shirt? One of my favorite comic book moments is Captain America's speech in Civil War comics. So good. Same as for you. Nice. I think what libertarianism is, I think that's what it's called, Stephen Kinsella's essay on what is libertarianism. He kind of laid it out pretty clearly, like, ultimately, consistent libertarianism is anarcho-capitalism. I was pretty convinced by that. The number keeps fluctuating between 2 and 3. It's like someone pops in and pops out. I don't know who it is. You can come hang out. 1689 LBCF, yeah. I would consider myself a substantial subscriber, not and it's not that there's anything in the LBCF that I disagree with. I just kind of, I don't know. I guess it's more on principle. Like, I kind of agree with them generally, mostly, probably completely. What are you now? You're hanging with those URC guys, right? Yeah. Good folk. checking on Twitter, putting a little something up there. All right. Theologically, vaguely be somewhere between Reformed and Lutheran. Yeah, it seems like Lutheranism is experiencing something of a comeback. You hear about lots of people going Lutheran, and I think, from what I understand, I'm into the whole 1689 federalism stuff, and so our covenant theology is very similar to Lutheran covenant theology. At least that's what Brandon Adams says. And I mostly just believe what he says. Yes. I'm a pastor of youth and music. So I play guitar and eat pizza. I just preached a few weeks ago, too. So I preach somewhat regularly. Yeah. Good deal. Yeah, I've got a little bit of a love-hate relationship with youth ministry. I guess so. Like the way I said it, I had a kid come up to me and say he wanted to be a youth pastor. And I said, well, I know this will be weird coming from your youth pastor, but I don't actually believe in youth pastors. I kind of just I believe in pastors, and sometimes it's useful for a pastor to specialize in youth. But I also sometimes I'm like, am I doing? Sometimes I wonder if youth ministry does all the good we think it's doing. Sometimes it segments off the youth away from the rest of the church. So I'm trying really hard not to do that. I'm trying to do some things in my church to get the youth more involved in the general body instead of segmenting them off. It's kind of like there's every once in a while someone will come out with some kind of a study about how many youth are leaving the church, and I kind of wonder, like, were they ever really part of the church? They're part of the youth group, not about the church. So I try not to do that. But the beard's starting to get kind of bushy. Dig it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm still doing it. I I didn't quit my job out of protest. I do think there can be some kind of a, like I said, if you think of it in terms of like I'm a pastor who specializes in youth, or it's a ministry specializing in youth, and we try really hard not to segment them off. It can be valuable. In the same way that like a singles ministry can be valuable if it's not a silo. Man. Sweet. Yeah, show me that. Pop that link. Some basic theology concepts. Nice. Did you grow up in a Reformed church, or were you in some other kind of church? I was gonna say just general evangelical, but I guess I don't know what your background is. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I think of Reformed theology in the same way I think of libertarianism. Like you don't like you could there's the Libertarian Party. There's kind of the official libertarianism, but there's also, just libertarian philosophy, which you can be if you're really, I don't know, you can be like Republican Liberty Caucus. You could be outside of the political parties, libertarian. It's the same thing with Reformed theology. You can be a Reformed, part of a official Reformed denomination. There's also like Reformed non-denom types, Reformed Baptist, Reformed this and that. Yeah, there's kind of the philosophy or the theology, and then there's the official worlds in which they run. Yeah, dispensationalism. It's a heck of a drug. I was, yeah, that's part of my neocon history, is I was also raised very dispensationalistic. Though not as dispensationalist as I've found ever since coming out into a more covenant theology. I've seen, man, I was on the pretty tame spectrum of dispensationalism. Yeah. The anti-war thing was pretty hard for me too. It was a hang up early on. Tell you what, was it Wall Street? Oh man, I'm looking up the Wall Street Banks and American Foreign Policy by Murray Rothbard. That took me from being begrudgingly anti-war, because I guess technically libertarianism is non-aggression and this is aggression. It took me from being just kind of, I guess I have to be non-aggressionist, to being like really, really mad about war. It's a turning point. Let's drop that in the chat. Boom. Now a contributing member of the conversation. Police stuff, yeah. Okay, there's 3 people on here, so there's enough that someone can call me a statist. I still sometimes go back and forth on that. Like, I know I'm not a unquestioning blue line with police stuff, and there's a lot of stuff out there that I get real mad about. But I just can't come along to the all cops are bad argument. And I can't even go so far as to be like, I don't see a place for police in, I don't know. Or, okay, how do I say this? In a private property society, I'm sure there will be private law enforcement. And I also sometimes wonder if there's a place for that, even in the existing social order that, okay. The CSPOA, Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers of America, they heavily push this thing called sheriff nullification. And I think that would be a valuable thing. If we get more libertarians in positions of power in police organizations, so they can use their power as sheriffs or as cops to nullify unjust laws. How you do that is obviously so much more complicated, and I'm just some idiot talking out my rear. But there's got to be, I think that's got to be part of our strategy for achieving liberty. Is got to be included. You know, says there's a third person in here. Say hey. Oh, they popped out. I mean, I'm cool with it just being Isaac and I talking back and forth. But you can say hey too. Lurker. Yeah, I just saw your comment. Yeah, that's it's a hard thing to shed, that whole toe the blue line thing. I mean, especially like I've got friends who are in law enforcement. One of the coolest guys I know, he's a highway patrolman, and we largely just don't talk about this for the sake of peace. Got a lot of people telling me they think a private law society is utopic and wouldn't work. How do you respond to people who claim that? Well, on the one hand, I would say depends on what you mean by utopic. You know, utopia in the sense of it would be a perfect society. You know, that's not anything that we would ever claim. Like there'll still be murder, there'll still be theft. It's the question is which society is best prepared to deal with the imperfections that are going to be part of human existence. Now, if by utopic you mean it's never going to happen, like it's probably not going to come about, whether in our lifetime or ever, they might be right. I don't know. This is where I find great comfort in sort of I guess I'm okay with tension on this one. I'm not sure that it will ever happen, but if you don't have a goal, then you don't know where you're going, right? Like if you don't have an end goal in mind on the map, then you're just going to be wandering. I think in terms of like a good parallel would be what I believe about, you know, perfect holiness. Do I think perfect holiness is possible? Well, not in this life, but it doesn't mean that I don't work toward it. And so a private law society a private property society, whatever. Is it possible? I'm not sure. I don't know if it ever could actually be accomplished in reality, but I'm okay with. I guess I'm okay with that. It still gives us a goal, something to work for. I think the wouldn't work part. Well, I don't know. Kaspaya. No, I don't actually know what that is. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Just looking at the word, I have no idea. Or was. Okay. It's interesting that it seems like our best example of libertarian societies in our world. Cause okay. Um, it's actually a monarchy. The what is it? Oh my goodness. Liechtenstein? I think it's Liechtenstein. Is is ruled by a king who wrote one of the best modern libertarian books. They say I've never read it, but yeah, I think Hoppe would have something to say about that. I assume. I guess I can also say something. Sometimes libertarians and anarcho-capitalists, when we're raging about the evils of the state, will get people, will get these sort of responses like, well, all you do is talk about what's wrong. You never give any solutions. Sometimes I think maybe the only solution necessary is to get people to stop thinking that the state is on their side. Like, that's a solution. Like, realizing that the state's not your uh, state's not your dad. The state's not looking out for you. The state's not your best friend. The sooner you realize that they're an institution of aggression, the better you understand the world you live in, and the more you're going to be able to just sort of see through the haze. Like what's that movie where the guy puts on the sunglasses, but then he tries to take down the aliens that oh my goodness, I am destroying this. But the guy puts on the sunglasses and you can see what the real message behind everything around. But then he tries to take them down. Honestly, it's enough just to say, here's reality. Now, love your family. Like, stop expecting politics to fix everything. Love your family. Love your friends. Love your church or community. Love your town. Love your city. Work to build a better community around you and let that be enough. So this has been 30 minutes. It's gone longer than I actually intended it to, and it's just a test. I think I'm going to do a real planned live on Monday night. The rural Rothbard and I were going to get together, and we have a third podcast that we're finishing up, and then we're going to try and start well, we're gonna have to start promoting it and telling people. For now, you can go over to our page wherever it is, and wherever the button is. I don't know, it's probably somewhere around here. I don't know. And go check out our first episode. It's got our origin stories there. You can hear me say a lot of times. That's something that I didn't know about myself until I listened afterwards. That was fun to find out. I say too much, so I'm working on that. And see, there it was again. And I'm going to go live for real after we're done recording that. I don't know that I got a time yet. Probably, I don't know, say 7 or 8, something like that. So look out for that. Look out for more podcasts coming. Keep liking and sharing every single thing we do because we are brilliant. Brilliant. Or at least we're entertaining. So I'll tag you when I go live. Subscribe because we'll be putting stuff out somewhat regularly. I'm probably going to play around this YouTube a little bit more. And have a good night, man. I'm probably going to delete this video. This is just garbage. All right. Good night. Take care.